Welcome everyone. Great success. I've managed to get the live streaming working again. So welcome to the Package Group's weekly sync for November 25th, 2019. And I believe, Nick, you have the first item.
Yeah. Okay. So this is the add npmrc button that I've added to the project presenter. So this came about from the idea from an issue that Nathan created, and then I did a POC of this feature, and now I've just tidied that up and made that a merge request. And so I've proved that it works and it's possible for us to implement this feature, but the change was pretty much all back end. So I wanted to discuss how I can pass this off to a back-end engineer to finish up. So my ideas was that I've created an MR. I feel that the code there is okay, but I'm not entirely sure if it meets all the back-end standards. For example, it's generating content, and I wasn't really sure where to do that or where that code should live. So this is just my best guess. And my feelings were that what I would do with this issue is perhaps we could mark it as ready to be picked up by a back-end engineer and just put it in the Kanban board for somebody to pick up when they've got some time or they want to work on it. And they could use what code that I've generated there as either a guide, or they can take it and then modify it and make it back-end ready, or whatever they want it to do. And yeah, so I don't feel that I have the expertise to really take this to completion, is what I'm trying to say here. So I don't know if anybody had any thoughts about that, or if anybody's willing to look at it, or if anybody had any ideas of how or when we should progress this.
So just process point, we were discussing this because we've had this come up. Nico has had this experience, and Haley as well, actually, where if you were looking for support from someone with a different skill set within the team, we hadn't really defined a process to describe what that looked like. And particularly if it's something you really need help with. I was trying to avoid the scenario where we go, just go throw it at a manager and go figure it out, and try and encourage people to work it out together. I don't know if that'll work. So Nathan created an issue, I believe, to discuss this. If you want to just link that under Nick's item in the agenda. And I think what we need to do is it's in scheduling. It's got the right workflow label right now because it needs to be it's in workflow scheduling, which means someone in backend needs to take a look at it. In this case, Rails experience needs to take a look at it and determine what's required, whether it needs any support from Tim or Ian, whether it needs any other information to be able to complete it. And if not, it can get the workflow ready for development and then the package active label. And then, yeah, totally, as you suggested, it could be in the Kanban board and someone could just pick it up when they have time. The one idea that we were talking about, I think, was the idea that we would have a label that identifies these sorts of issues as something that is in support of some other member of the team, and potentially to have that as a second level priority after our planning priority label items. Was that a reasonable summary of what we were sort of thinking there, Nathan?
Yep, I think that's exactly what we talked about. Yep. And that's kind of what Nico had mentioned too in your response to that issue. So that seems like a good way to go forward for me.
Cool, and that came up for a few people. Sorry, Steve, go ahead.
I was going to say, I like the idea of having some sort of secondary label in addition to the package active, even if it's still just on that package active list. Just some way to identify, if there's like 30 tickets or issues on the package active list, that maybe I noticed the label that says that, oh, the front end is already done on this, or, like this one's already in process. So it might be better to pick that up since it's already kind of like moving along.
Yeah, awesome. So Nathan's linking to that in the agenda. So if people want to go through and add their thoughts, that would be good. I know Nico and Haley, this has been an actual thing for you both. And so certainly if you feel like that doesn't satisfy the need that you had for support, then please make sure that it's clear. But otherwise it'd be good to know if you feel like that'll work as a good starting point and we can just use it right away. no need to worry about too much. But if we decide that's a good fit for what we're trying to solve, then we can update the team page in the handbook with the new way of doing things or addition. Does anyone have any other thoughts or concerns about that?
It's not a concern. It's just a thought that I think I just need to make. I know when we started, I put a bunch of stuff into scheduling and active, and I haven't gone through and maintained that at all. So I do want to make sure that that doesn't get out of hand, where it feels like there's too many things in active or scheduling. So I'll make sure. Maybe I should go through and do a cleanup of some things now that everyone's kind of gone through and added thoughts to a bunch of issues. But yeah, not a concern. I think just for me, I want to make sure that I maintain those two lists in like a clean and organized way. So I could try and get to that this week.
Well, yeah, and I think that's a good point. We need to do some level of grooming across the workflow scheduling list, but I don't know if that falls on you, Tim. I think for you and Ian, there'll be things that are labeled there, excuse me, where you might be tagged in there where you need support, but it's actually on engineering, I believe, to actually go through that list and make sure it's okay. So in the way that we were looking through the bugs on a regular sort of cadence and people in the team, that's type of thing, that would be the type of thing that I think would be necessary here to make sure that list doesn't turn into 1,000 items and there's nothing in ready for development. So I think that's on the engineering team to do that. Do people agree or disagree with that?
For me personally, I would feel a lot better if everything in the schedule item had a clear problem to solve and a clear proposal. I think that would make me feel like I'm doing a good job of making, because right now there's a bunch of issues that are in there that have like one line of text. It's just an idea. And I think sometimes those are workable, but for me, it would make me feel better if I at least did, if I at least just had the problem to solve, be a little bit more clear in the proposal. And, but yeah, that's my only thought, but it's a selfish one.
Yeah, I know it's totally valid. I mean, I think that's been a concern here because there's points in this workflow that we've started using where things could just get stalled out if we're not paying attention to them. So I don't think there's any reason you can't go through that list, but I think in the way we described this workflow, it was on engineering to make sure those items moved from scheduling to ready for development. And so if you see items in that list that you feel like aren't ready for an engineer to go look at, I think you can easily pull them out of there and put them in your list. But if we all end up working in that same list, maybe we can talk about a different approach after that, but I think that's fine. Yeah, so maybe there's another little gap there in the workflow we have going, but I think we have enough stuff in package active already and ready for development where we don't have to worry about it too much right now. And we can sort of, as we go through the milestone, we can figure out whether there's extra effort necessary to sort of groom that list as we go along. Unless people feel like there's something else we're missing. I think these two gaps seem reasonable as a good couple of having a couple of gaps is a good thing. Cool. All right. Silence means no. So, well, I don't know which jurisdictions people are in, but sometimes silence means consent. Nico?
Yeah. So this is an idea that came out in our weekly front-end UX talk, and to use the new feature about Epic that contain Epic to actually split our work differently. And so I made an issue in our group to discuss that, and it could also potentially solve and now this is a thought that I formulated now. It could also potentially solve the problem with like front-end work blocking backend or backend work blocking front-end, because we could have one issue for front-end and like one epic to describe the problem, one issue for the front-end, and then if backend is needed, we just create the issue for the backend, and we could still track everything because we can do epic of epics. But I generated an issue. Let's discuss there async, or if somebody has some comments now, happy to discuss it.
I'm very excited about this change. I feel like this is something we've been talking about using epics for ages, and because we have epics already at a higher level, it's been like not a thing that we can do. So this seems awesome to me. What's the process? I apologize for the simple question. Perhaps what's the process to convert an issue to an epic? Is there a process? You just have to recreate it
manually. So we were discussing this. I wrote a proposal in the issue, but the gist will be create a new epic, copy the content of the originating issue, take the original issue with change the title and put it in the epic so that we don't lose comments and context, because sometimes there is issues that are like 3 years old and we don't want to lose like all that conversation and then move on with technical issues there. This is what I wrote inside, but we can discuss this.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I think this is something that could really help us with stuff where there's dependencies, but the other area that I was thinking this would be really valuable was stuff where we go, hey, this is bigger than a 5, which we shouldn't really have anything. And then, like, for example, the shouldn't, air quotes, the NuGet implementation, that's going to span like a lot of work. So those sorts of things should also be ending up as epics, I think, where we can break them up into much smaller items and make it a bit clearer, because they're a little hard to manage otherwise. So yeah, this is great. Does anyone else have any thoughts? I mean to be chatty pants here.
Yeah, I'll add this to the issue, but my own thought is that we want to make sure that we don't get too carried away with, just because we can split things, we should. Like, I like the idea of if something spans multiple milestones, certainly it should be split up in a way that makes sense, that we can actually fit into milestones. But if something is small and we're still just kind of like splitting it into 2 issues because it requires 2 different pieces of work, that probably could have just been handled like as 2 MRs and, less paperwork, I guess is what I'm trying to say. I don't know how we would define that kind of a rule, but it's something we should maybe think about to make sure we don't get too crazy with it.
I like the idea of having the help labels in conjunction with this. Like, if it's like there's like a quick like, hey, Rails people, is this a big deal? Like, do you need to do a lot of work on this? Just to kind of get something like that if that's beyond your expertise, and then it could be like, oh, this is actually going to be a big deal. It's like a multi-stage process. Then we can open an epic, so we could probably do both things and to try to have more tools in our toolbox.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Nathan, go ahead. Were you going to say something? Sorry.
Oh, I had just a quick question. I don't know do epics show up on the board? I'm assuming they don't, but I don't know.
They currently don't, but I don't know if it changed with the new epics. Or yeah, they used to not show up, but maybe they do now. I'm not sure. We have a good example case actually that we want to use, right, Nico? We have for the retention policies, we were thinking about creating an epic and some sub epics. It might be good to play with it for that particular issue, and then we can see how it works and what we can learn from it.
Cool.
Cool. Nico, you've got the next one as well.
Yeah, so the next one is just a funny point. Somebody, Jordi, I won't pronounce his surname because I'm not able, posted a YouTube video of one of our code, and I converted it to GIF. Happy if it generates a laugh. And that's it. And over to Nathan.
That's awesome. Let me see what I had. Oh yeah, so we kind of already chatted about this. I just added a link to that issue about how to handle dependencies, and we've already talked on several about that in several previous points. So feel free to discuss in that issue. And it sounds like we kind of have a good way forward already. On to Dan.
So I was trying to load up the GIF so that you could actually share it. That way people following along at home could also enjoy how ridiculous I am. But I'm not capable right now. So if anyone wants to do that, we can come back to this topic. Anywho, I'm glad I was wearing my hydraulic press channel shirt as well, which it's such a random YouTube reference. I've had a couple of people sort of go, "What is that?" I've had like very rarely someone's like actually knows what it is. What were you going to say, Nico?
No, just that the T-shirt make it perfect. The text, the label on the T-shirt make the video perfect.
All right. Well, thank you for the laugh at myself. Hashtag my own expense at my own expense. All right. So what I was going to raise was our metrics. We actually did end up getting a lot of code delivered. I was going to share my screen so peeps could see it, but everyone here has access to it. Let's see, should I be sharing my screen here? I'm not a fan of the, I guess everyone sees it anyway. All right. Okay, so just wanted to point out that we've actually been doing really well here. Everything's sort of coming up. We've had a couple of really good results here in terms of our metrics. Something we are trying to solve here is, oh, this hasn't been updated for a while. Let me update, sorry. And Haley, I don't know if we ended up getting the container registry repo included in this as well. So I believe this yet. I don't know if that's been updated. I'll have to follow up on that. But that would show more MRs actually, because the MRs that Haley's been doing have not appeared in this list because the accounting did not include that particular repo. So as you can see, we've been 12.5 was pretty pretty good compared to what we've been doing. So I feel like everyone's work is paying off. Everyone, I mean, not just people writing code, because this depends on everyone working together. So I just wanted to call out everyone doing an awesome job here, and thank you very much for doing that. Realistically, I do want to make sure we're thinking about these metrics when we're actually going through, you know, the average work week, as it were. And that average work week looks like a lot of different things for us, because that's the idea with working at GitLab. The other thing I want to call out here is the mean time to merge is something that we've been seeing issues with from everyone. And this is from issue MR creation to MR closed to merged. But you can see our weekly is actually coming down a bit. We're actually getting things through a little quicker here, but that's still not ideal on the overall monthly trend. So we need to sort of work that out. Yeah, a few more things here. But realistically, I just want to call out how that we've done such a great job, and we'd be awesome to keep that momentum going. Does anyone have any questions about this?
Yeah, just a quick one. Oh. I was just going to ask, the mean time to merge, how does that work exactly? Because I have a tendency to create an MR as I'm working on something. So, and it might be like it's a week or two before that I'm even ready for that to be merged. As opposed to like I don't create the MR just before like the code is ready. If you get what I'm saying.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. I mean, it is from MR creation to merge. So like if you create it today and you merge it next month, then that's the mean time. That's going to be that, like a month, call it, for a time to merge.
And I can add that I do the same thing. So I'm sure I contribute to that higher number. Like I'll generally, like when I assign myself an issue, sometimes I'll just click create merge request right away, even before I start thinking about it, because then that turns into the area where I can jot down notes or ask other people about technical questions and sort of like dig in from that perspective, even though I might not actually push a commit for a week or something.
Yeah, same here. Couldn't we use the label in review? So the first time that the label appeared?
Yeah, well, I've already requested this change and it's something we're working on, but you're 100% right. It makes sense once it goes, even if we took it from when it first went into review, because it can come in and out of review during the process, something that Steve and I have talked about a bit. Even if it went, first time it went into review, it actually got it started the timer, as it were, on how long it took. That would be fine compared to when we create it. Please don't change your process if it's working for you to create an MR when you start working on something. That's not the point of this discussion around mean time to merge. I have escalated up the concern that we're not really seeing the correct data here with regard to the merge time. So keep doing what you're doing, and just something to call out that we've seen this be pretty high for people. And I don't mean pretty high in terms of when the MR is created to when it's merged, but actually people are taking 4 days, like a single line change was something that took 4 days to get through, Steve, for the regex.
Oh yeah, I added an asterisk to a regex. It took about 4 days.
Yeah. So like stuff like that is, these are exceptions that I don't think should be the norm, but if they are, then we need to account for them. Cool. Anyway, that's all I want to say. We're coming up on time. We're actually a little bit over for our speedy meetings, and we have another item. If other people have questions about this, you should all have access. If you don't, please ask. Please make sure you get access, and if you need help getting access, let me know. And Tim, go ahead.
Yeah, mine will be quick. I just wanted to set expectations for what's going on for this week for myself. So I have a little bit of a short week because of the holiday, and there are a bunch of content updates that I need to make. So we have our group presentation tomorrow. We have our monthly updates to our strategy and direction page. There's 2 customer issues, and then it's crazy, but thinking about the 4th for next week, we need to have a draft of 12.7 milestone issues. So I'll be a little bit busy with the condensed week. So if you need something, I suggest just pinging me directly, or just making sure that if you're waiting more than a bit for me, just ping me directly so I find it, because otherwise I feel like I'm going to be in this content updating world. So that's all. I just wanted to give a quick update.
Yeah, thanks for that, Tim. I think there will be a few of us that are out this week a little bit. So yeah, thanks for that. Appreciate it. Any help I can offer, please let me know. Cool. Is everyone happy? Awesome. I'm going to end the recording now.